There is a quiet war happening around us. Not one fought with weapons or armies, but with words, egos, and pride. In offices, in group chats, on glowing screens at midnight, battles rage, unseen but deeply felt. People don't fight to understand anymore. They fight to win. They crave reaction more than resolution. And in that hunger for chaos, truth becomes a casualty. Here are the 10 lessons on Some People Seek Conflict, Not Truth. Lesson 1. The modern battlefield is the mind. The greatest wars today are not on physical soil. They unfold within the mind and through the words we trade. In a world that rewards reaction, peace becomes rebellion. Every post, every opinion, every debate feels like a spark waiting for gasoline. You scroll, you see arguments over meaning, over morality, over nothing, and still, the pull to engage grows stronger. You feel it, that urge to correct, to prove, to fight. But what are you fighting for? Most of the time, it isn't truth. It's validation. The ego disguises itself as righteousness, whispering, "They need to know you're right." And so you step into the noise, believing you're serving justice, when you're really just feeding fire. Seneca once said, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable." That's the real battle, to not be conquered by noise, to not let anger hijack reason, to not let someone else's confusion pull you into madness. The Stoic doesn't run from confrontation. He rises above its gravity. He observes, he listens, but he doesn't absorb. He knows that to argue with a fool is to hand over peace to chaos. He knows that silence sometimes is not weakness, it's wisdom. Look around. This generation is burning itself on friction. People don't want peace, they want to feel powerful. They mistake aggression for clarity and confrontation for confidence. But what power is it to lose your temper? What victory is there in shouting louder but understanding less? You don't win when you dominate the conversation. You win when you master yourself. That's the battle every Stoic fights daily, the war within. Because until you learn to control your own reactions, every argument will own you. When you start seeing through this, and when you catch yourself before the rise, before the bite, before the post, you begin to reclaim your freedom. And it's a quiet freedom, not one the world celebrates, but one that brings back the stillness of your own mind. That's where truth lives, not in shouting matches or endless replies, but in silence deep enough to hear yourself again. Lesson 2. Conflict is the language of the unsettled. There's a kind of person who cannot sit still in silence. They need tension the way lungs need air. Without it, they start to fade, like fire denied oxygen. These are the people who turn calm waters into waves, who can't let quiet moments breathe. Not because they love chaos, but because they fear stillness. In stillness, they might meet themselves. You've met them before. The coworker who thrives on gossip. The friend who turns advice into argument. The stranger online who wages war under every post. They live in a constant state of defense, always braced for attack, even when no one is aiming at them. And when peace arrives, they grow uneasy, because peace feels foreign to the unsettled mind. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." A mind steeped in resentment sees threat everywhere. A person lost in anger will find enemies even in friends. You cannot reason with them because their wounds speak louder than your words. They don't seek understanding. They seek reaction, confirmation that their chaos still matters. The Stoic sees this clearly. He recognizes that most conflict is not between people, but within them. You can't heal someone's internal war by entering it. You can only choose not to be drafted. When you encounter someone like this, someone looking to provoke, to pull you into their storm, pause. Ask yourself, do they want truth or just company in their misery? Most of the time, it's the latter. They don't want clarity. They want to feel alive through conflict. Your peace threatens them because it shows what they lack. In those moments, you must choose the higher language: silence, empathy, distance. Not all silence is surrender. Sometimes it's survival. Sometimes it's a quiet declaration that says, "I won to carry what isn't mine." Seneca wrote, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." When you react to someone's chaos, you invite it inside. Their fire becomes your burden. Their drama becomes your distraction. And before you know it, you're both burning. But neither is any closer to the truth. Conflict, for some, is identity. They've worn pain so long that they mistake it for purpose. So they pick fights with the world, hoping someone will validate their wounds. But Stoicism reminds us, peace is not found in being understood, but in understanding. Understanding that others project their turmoil. Understanding that your calm is not cruelty. Understanding that compassion doesn't always mean participation, so let them speak in the language of chaos. You don't have to translate it. Listen with empathy, respond with restraint, and walk away with your center intact. That is what it means to live above the noise, to remain the calm presence in a room full of storms. Because conflict will always exist. But whether it enters your heart, that's your choice. Lesson 3. The ego loves to be offended. There's a strange comfort people find in being offended. It makes them feel alive, righteous, relevant. In a world that constantly demands reaction, outrage becomes currency. It gives the illusion of strength, when in truth, it only reveals how fragile the ego truly is. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." Those words carry a quiet defiance against the modern sickness of sensitivity, because the Stoic knows. Offense is rarely about what was said, but about what within you was touched. The ego loves to be offended because it fears irrelevance. It thrives on drama, feeds on insult, and survives through validation. Without it, it feels invisible. And to the ego, invisibility is death. You see this everywhere. Online, where comment sections burn with endless debates. In relationships, where silence is mistaken for disrespect. At work, where a simple suggestion becomes a personal attack. The offended mind turns every neutral act into an injury. It's a world where peace feels boring and conflict feels like purpose. But the Stoic doesn't move like this. He understands that offense is a mirror. When someone's words disturb you, it's not their noise that matters. It's the echo it finds within you. What wound did it touch? What expectation did it betray? The wise do not rush to defend their pride. They study it. They ask, why did this bother me so much? Epictetus said, it is not things that upset us, but our opinions about things. It's the interpretation that gives pain its power. The event is neutral. The judgment is not. You cannot control what others say, but you can master how you interpret it. When you strip away ego, offense becomes impossible. Because nothing can shake the person who no longer needs to be seen as superior. Nothing can wound the one who no longer needs to win every argument. That's real freedom. Not in controlling others, but in mastering your reaction to them. Think of a calm lake. Throw a stone, and ripples appear. But throw enough, and the lake still returns to stillness. That's how you must be, responsive, but never reactive. Let the world throw its stones. You'll feel the surface shift, but your depth remains untouched. Seneca once said, "He who is offended when he is told of his faults has a spirit that cannot bear correction. Offense blinds you from truth. It makes you defend your weakness instead of transforming it. Every time you take offense, you give away your peace to another's opinion. You hand them the power to define you. The modern world rewards outrage, but the Stoic chooses indifference, not as apathy, but as mastery. To remain calm when insulted, to stay silent when provoked, to respond with grace, not aggression. That's strength that needs no witness. Because when you stop being offended, you stop being controlled. You begin to live not by reaction, but by reason. You start choosing what deserves your energy, and most of what once enraged you no longer qualifies. The ego wants to be right. The soul wants to be free. And every time you refuse to take offense, you feed the soul, not the ego. You make space for peace where pride once lived. And slowly, that peace becomes your armor. Soft, invisible, unbreakable. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this. Their words are stones thrown into your stillness, but you are not the ripples. You are the depth. Let the ego love offense. You love peace more. Lesson 4. Disagreement is not disrespect. The modern world confuses disagreement with attack. We've grown so fragile that the moment someone challenges our view, we call it disrespect. But the Stoics knew, truth doesn't emerge from comfort. It's shaped in the friction between differing minds. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone can show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." There is immense humility in those words, the kind that the ego despises. Because the ego doesn't seek truth, it seeks validation. It doesn't want to be right. It wants to feel right. Today, disagreement feels personal. Scroll through social media and you'll see it. Arguments that start as ideas and end as insults. Friends turned strangers over opinions. People shouting not to understand, but to dominate. Everyone wants to speak. No one wants to listen. But a Stoic stands apart from this noise. He understands that disagreement is not an enemy. It is the refining fire of wisdom. When someone disagrees, the untrained mind reacts with defense, while the disciplined mind responds with curiosity. Ask, why do they see it differently? What can this teach me about myself? Seneca wrote, "Truth lies open to everyone. It is not yet anyone's possession." To live by this is to remember, no one owns the truth. Not you, not me. Only fragments belong to each of us, waiting to be connected through conversation, not destroyed by confrontation. Yet, this requires an uncommon strength. The strength to listen without reacting. To hear words that challenge your beliefs and not feel lesser. To accept that another's insight does not erase your worth. That humility is rare because it asks you to sacrifice ego, and ego is the god most people secretly worship. Disagreement becomes disrespect only when pride becomes the interpreter. When you attach your identity to your opinions, every challenge feels like a personal wound. But your worth is not your opinion. Your dignity does not depend on being right. And your peace does not rely on others agreeing with you. Imagine this. Two swords striking one another. Sparks fly, but both blades sharpen. That is what disagreement, handled with grace, can do for the mind. It sharpens perspective. It exposes blind spots. It humbles arrogance. You lose nothing when you learn from opposition. You only lose when you let pride dictate your response. In relationships, this wisdom saves connection. Because not every difference requires distance. Sometimes the deepest respect is in allowing another to see the world differently, without forcing your reflection onto theirs. Love and respect are not conformity. They are patience and diversity. The Stoic learns to stay still in the storm of opinions. They can say, "I see it your way, but I still stand where I am," without hostility. Because peace is not agreement, it's understanding. And maturity is realizing that understanding someone doesn't mean becoming them. Epictetus once said, "When another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. You will realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety that they hold any particular opinion about you." That's Stoic detachment in motion, not coldness but clarity. The ability to see beyond words into the condition of another's soul and remain unmoved. Think of it this way. If someone disagrees with you, it means they are thinking. It means they are alive in their own mind. And isn't that what you want? A world of thinkers, not echoes. Why demand that everyone mirror your thoughts when individuality is the soil of wisdom? Yet many fear disagreement because it exposes how little conviction their beliefs truly have. A belief untested by challenge is a fragile one. The Stoic welcomes opposing views not to win but to strengthen understanding. They do not argue to conquer but to clarify. They don't shout, they examine. They don't hate, they observe. We've mistaken loudness for confidence, and silence for weakness. But true confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to crush others to feel secure. It stands firm in reason, while leaving space for others to breathe their truth. The Stoic doesn't react to disagreement with anger. They see it as a teacher wearing the mask of conflict. When you stop needing others to agree, you gain two things: peace and perspective. Peace, because you no longer depend on external validation. Perspective, because every differing opinion becomes a mirror showing you new angles of truth. And remember, disagreement is the path of progress. Every great truth began as heresy. Every new idea was once rejected by those who feared being wrong. If you silence disagreement, you silence evolution. If you shun difference, you remain in ignorance. So, let others speak. Let them oppose you. You lose nothing by listening, but you lose everything when pride deafens you. The Stoic listens deeply, then decides calmly. No reaction, no resentment, just discernment. At the heart of this lesson lies one simple truth: you cannot grow if you cannot be challenged. Disagreement does not dishonor you. It invites you to rise above the emotional storm and anchor yourself in reason. And in that calm, you'll find a strength that no argument can shake. Because wisdom doesn't fear conflict, and it refines itself through it. The Stoic does not fight to be right. He listens to stay wise. So the next time someone challenges your belief, smile inwardly. It's not a battle to win. It's a chance to evolve. Disagreement is not disrespect. It's dialogue. It's the test that separates the fragile ego from the disciplined soul. And if you can hold your peace while the world argues around you, you've already won the only argument that truly matters. Lesson 5. The ego craves drama. The soul craves stillness. There's a hunger inside every person. The hunger to be noticed, to be right, to be heard. That hunger is the ego's whisper. Don't let them disrespect you. Don't let them win. Show them. It promises strength, but it only feeds your exhaustion. The Stoics saw through this illusion long before the world learned to perform online. Seneca warned, "He who seeks wisdom should not wander among crowds." He meant that constant noise, the need to be seen, steals you from yourself. Because ego is the storm that makes still water impossible. Scroll through any social feed and you'll see the drama. People arguing, performing, defending, explaining. Everyone wants the last word. Everyone wants to be the hero of their story, the victim of another's cruelty, the philosopher of their own pain. But what they truly want is attention. And attention is the currency of the ego. The soul, however, doesn't bargain for attention. It doesn't chase applause or validation. It doesn't perform. It simply is. It speaks quietly, moves slowly, and values peace over pride. It finds meaning not in being loud, but in being present. Ego says, win. The soul says, understand. Ego says, prove them wrong. The soul says, let them learn in time. Ego thrives in noise. The soul survives in silence. When you feed the ego, you feed the drama. Endless stories of who hurt you, who doubted you, who didn't understand. You keep reliving battles that don't exist anymore. You wake up tired, not because of what happened, but because you keep replaying it. But the Stoic knows, peace doesn't need a witness. You don't need to announce your calm or post your growth, you just need to live it. Quietly. Consistently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And yet, we let the world plant weeds in our mind, gossip, resentment, revenge. We scroll through digital chaos and call it staying informed, but really, we're just feeding the mind poison in pretty packaging. Ego feeds on comparison. It whispers that someone's success is your failure. It tells you that being overlooked means being worthless. But the soul doesn't measure worth that way. The soul knows, what is yours will find you when you stop chasing what isn't. Drama is the language of the insecure. Peace is the language of the wise. The difference? Drama shouts for validation. Peace whispers for truth. In relationships, the ego creates stories. They ignored me. They disrespected me. But often the truth is simpler. They were busy, distracted, or lost in their own chaos. The ego personalizes everything. The soul understands that not everything is about you. When someone criticizes you, the ego wants to strike back. The soul simply observes and asks, "Is there truth here I can use?" If yes, you grow. If not, you let it pass like wind over still water. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Drama lives in imagination, endless interpretations, assumptions, exaggerations. The mind creates entire wars out of misunderstood moments. But when you slow down, when you breathe before reacting, you'll see that most conflicts dissolve in silence. The Stoic trains daily for this, not by building walls, but by mastering response. They don't run from emotion, but they don't drown in it either. They witness it. Like a calm observer in a crowded theater, they watch the play without becoming the character. The ego cannot stand stillness, really, because in stillness it dies. It thrives only when you feed it drama, envy, attention. But the soul is the opposite. It expands in stillness. It becomes light, patient, unshaken. That's why solitude, silence, and mindfulness feel uncomfortable at first, because you're starving the part of you that thrives on noise. Stillness is not escape. It's endurance. It is standing in a storm and knowing you done and have to dance with every gust. It's refusing to let someone's chaos recruit your peace. It's realizing that not every problem needs fixing. Some only need to be released. You see, the ego needs enemies to survive. Without conflict, it fades. Without drama, it has no fuel. So it invents tension, digs up old wounds, keeps replaying pain like a favorite song. But your soul doesn't want to fight. It wants to be free. Free from proving. Free from performing. Free from pretending. When you begin to live for peace instead of validation, you'll lose a lot of noise, but gain clarity. You'll speak less, but say more. You'll argue less, but understand deeper. You'll care less about being seen and more about being centered. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And that's the pivot. Your reaction determines your reality. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you affirm to the world, "My peace is not negotiable." So when drama approaches, pause. When the ego flares up, breathe. When your mind demands to prove something, smile. You don't need to respond to every spark. Sometimes the fire dies simply because you stopped feeding it. True power is restraint. True confidence is silence. True wisdom is knowing the difference between what deserves your energy and what deserves your absence. The ego craves drama. The soul craves stillness. Feed one, and you'll forever chase noise. Feed the other, and you'll finally rest in peace. Not the kind that ends life, but the kind that begins it. Lesson 6. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. There's a strange kind of freedom in walking away from noise. Not in arrogance, not in defeat, but in wisdom. Because not every argument is a dialogue. Some are traps for your peace. Some are invitations to chaos disguised as conversation. You don't owe every provocation your presence. You don't have to defend your name in every room it's spoken. You don't need to correct every false story or reply to every subtle insult. Silence at times is not retreat. It's transcendence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And yet, the world tells us to clap back, to prove, to win. We've turned reaction into validation and calmness into weakness. But what if the real victory isn't in being right? It's in being unmoved. Look around. Everyone's shouting, arguing in comment sections, debating people they'll never meet. They want to be seen more than they want to be wise. They want to win arguments more than they want to understand life. But you can choose differently. You can choose to preserve energy instead of spending it on noise that doesn't nourish you. Epictetus taught, "If someone speaks ill of you, remember, it is only their opinion." He meant that no one's words have power until you hand it to them. An insult needs your reaction to become real. An argument needs your participation to survive. Without your attention, chaos starves. This is where inner strength reveals itself, in restraint, not retaliation. Because restraint is a quiet kind of mastery. It is the ability to stand in the middle of provocation and not let it recruit your peace. It's knowing that walking away doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. In the modern world, arguments have become entertainment. We've mistaken attention for significance. People argue not for truth, but for ego, to be seen, to be validated, to feel powerful for a moment. But power borrowed from conflict always leaves you empty. It feeds the ego and starves the soul. The Stoic understands this. Energy is finite, and every time you enter meaningless conflict, you rob yourself of the strength to fight real battles, the inner ones. Self-discipline, focus, purpose. That's where your war should be fought, not in words, but in will. There's also something sacred about not explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Some people don't want truth. They want reaction. They don't listen to understand, only to reply. You can't reason with that kind of noise, you can only rise above it. Seneca said, "A wise man is content with himself." That contentment is your shield. When you know who you are, others' opinions lose gravity. When your peace is rooted internally, the external world can't shake it. You become untouchable, not because you fight everything, but because you don't need to. Think about how much peace is lost in the need to be understood. You explain, you argue, you repeat. But peace never lives there. Peace lives in letting go, in being okay with being misread, in choosing your own stillness over someone else's chaos. The Stoic doesn't avoid confrontation out of fear. They avoid it out of understanding. They see how reaction chains the mind to emotion. They recognize that most conflicts resolve themselves when ignored. They know that silence is often the sharpest weapon because it cuts without wounding and heals without words. There's a story told about Socrates. When insulted by a man, he simply smiled and walked away. A student asked why he didn't respond, and Socrates said, "Would you accept a gift of venom if you did not want it?" The man frowned. "Then why should I accept his anger?" Socrates replied. This is what mastery looks like. Not indifference, but clarity. To see clearly that reaction is a choice. That silence is not submission, but selection. You choose peace not because you can't fight, but because you know not every battle deserves your sword. And this is the essence of Stoicism in motion. Control over the self before control over anything else. The world can provoke, insult, misunderstand, even attack, but it cannot dictate your inner state unless you hand it the key. So the next time someone provokes you, pause. The moment your ego rises, breathe deeper. Ask yourself, is this battle worthy of my stillness? Most won't be. And in that pause, you'll find power. The power of non-reaction, the power of peace. Because every argument you refuse to attend is one more step toward mastery. And the one who needs to respond the least is often the one who understands the most. So let the world argue, let them chase noise. You, king, stay still. Because when your peace is not for sale, no chaos can afford you. Lesson 7. Your energy is sacred. Spend it wisely. There is a quiet truth most people never learn. Not everything deserves your energy. Every reaction, every worry, every argument, they all cost something. Your peace, your focus, your clarity. The Stoics understood that attention is currency. What you give it to, you empower. What you withdraw it from, you weaken. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion." That's not apathy, it's mastery. It's realizing that not all thoughts require answers and not all battles deserve your presence. Look around you. People are drained not because life is cruel, but because they spend their strength on things that don't matter. They react to every comment. They chase every comparison. They try to please everyone and prove everything. And in that endless giving away of energy, they forget themselves. Your energy is sacred. It's not meant to be thrown into every storm that calls your name. Some storms aren't yours to fight. They're just weather passing through. You can observe without being consumed. You can care without collapsing. You can be aware without absorbing everything around you. Think of your mind like a garden. Whatever you water grows. If you water anger, it multiplies. If you water gratitude, peace blooms. Most people let weeds, gossip, comparison, resentment, choke their peace until nothing good remains. But you, if you are to live as the Stoics taught, must guard that soil. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Your reaction is your investment. Every time you react in anger, you pay with calm. Every time you dwell on things beyond your control, you pay with joy. You cannot afford to keep paying the world in peace for things that never build you. In this modern world, your attention is prey, apps, ads, arguments, all competing for it. You are told to respond instantly, to stay updated, to never miss out. But missing out on noise is not loss. It's liberation. Because peace is not found in having more. It's found in needing less. You'll find that when you start to guard your energy, people will call you distant, cold, detached. Let them. You're not being cold, you're being selective. You've learned the cost of your calm and decided to stop giving discounts. There is power in saying, "This doesn't deserve my attention." Think of the Stoic warrior not as someone who fights endlessly, but as someone who knows exactly when to draw his sword. He saves his strength for what truly matters: purpose, virtue, discipline, love. Everything else is noise. In relationships, you will meet people who drain your energy simply because they haven't learned how to protect their own. They'll hand you their chaos and call it connection. But you must learn to love without losing yourself, to help without absorbing, to care without collapsing. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Every unnecessary battle is time wasted. Every argument for pride, every reaction to gossip, every moment spent proving your worth. All of it burns your light without purpose, and you only have so much light. Guard your mornings like a temple. Start the day before the world's noise finds you. Don't scroll. Don't rush. Sit in silence and ask, where will my energy serve me today? When you choose with intention, you move with power, because you're no longer reacting and you're responding. And when the world tests you, when someone tries to pull you into their storm, pause and ask yourself one question. Is this worth my peace? If the answer is no, walk away. Calmly, silently, completely. Energy is not infinite, and the wise know that wasting it on the wrong things is how you lose yourself. Your energy builds your destiny. Spend it only on what grows you, not what drains you. At the end of the day, peace is expensive because it costs awareness. You must be conscious of what you allow in, who you listen to, what you give your thoughts to. Guard it like something sacred, because it is. You can rebuild money, you can rebuild plans, but once your peace is gone, it takes time to reclaim it. So treat your energy like a precious currency. Not everyone, not everything, deserves to spend it. Remember this: the loudest voice in the room is not always the strongest. Sometimes the strongest is the one who stays still, protects their focus, and walks quietly in peace. So move with intention, brother. Speak less, observe more. Because not every noise deserves your attention, and not every fire deserves your flame. Your energy is sacred, spend it wisely. Because when your peace becomes your priority, you stop surviving and start mastering life. Lesson 8. When you stop chasing chaos, peace finds you. There's a strange habit we all share. We say we want peace, but we chase noise. We scroll through conflict, respond to drama, argue with strangers online, and call it staying informed. We confuse stimulation with meaning. We crave stillness, yet fear silence. But peace is not something you can catch. It only appears when you stop chasing chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." He didn't write this in comfort. He wrote it surrounded by war, politics, and betrayal, because peace was never about circumstances. It was about discipline, the discipline to not be ruled by what disturbs you. Look at your life. Every notification, every heated conversation, every pointless debate, all of them demand your energy. But here's the quiet truth. Most of that chaos was never yours. You adopted it. You carried other people's noise because your silence felt too empty, and that's the trap. When your mind grows addicted to conflict, calm feels foreign. Peace is not passive. It is strength under control. It is the choice to no longer be pulled by what doesn't build you. When someone tries to provoke you, peace whispers, "You don't need to attend every battle you're invited to." When the world screams for reaction, peace reminds you that not everything deserves your voice. Seneca once said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." When you spread yourself across every storm, you lose your center. When you're everywhere, arguing, reacting, defending, you vanish from the only place peace can live, within. To reclaim it, you must return home to yourself. Peace begins the moment you stop needing to be right. It begins when you stop needing to win every argument, to prove every point, to correct every misunderstanding. Because most people don't seek truth, they seek validation. And validation is a hunger that never ends. So let them believe what they need to. You don't need to lose your calm to defend your truth. Truth stands quietly. It doesn't need noise to exist. When you stop chasing chaos, you'll notice something else and the world slows down. Your mind breathes again. You begin to see how much of what you thought mattered doesn't. The person who insulted you? Forgotten in days. The thing you overreacted to? Irrelevant in weeks. But your peace, and that's what stays. That's what builds you. We live in a time where people equate loudness with strength. They think silence means defeat. But the Stoic warrior knows better. He knows that silence is strategy, that restraint is power, that walking away can be an act of dominance because you refuse to let chaos dictate your state. Epictetus taught, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit. No one controls your peace unless you hand them the keys. They can shout, provoke, insult, but you decide whether to open the door. Peace means keeping that door locked until wisdom says otherwise. Think of peace like still water. The clearer it becomes, the more you can see your reflection. When chaos ripples it, everything distorts. Your thoughts, your emotions, your sense of direction. But when you remain still, calm returns, and truth reveals itself again. To stop chasing chaos, you must detach from the illusion that your value is tied to external noise. You're not what people say about you. You're not the likes, the views, the arguments won or lost. You are the observer behind all of it. When you remember that, the world loses its grip. It's not about ignoring life. It's about mastering your response to it. Peace is active work. It's choosing your reactions. It's learning to breathe before you respond, to pause before you engage, to let silence be your answer when noise comes knocking. And in that pause, that sacred pause, you discover your real strength. Seneca wrote, "To be calm is the highest achievement of the self." He didn't mean a life without challenges. He meant a spirit unshaken by them. You can face storms and remain steady. You can walk through fire without letting it reach your heart. Because peace doesn't mean the absence of chaos. It means the chaos no longer lives inside you. Every day the world will invite you to lose yourself, to react, to argue, to prove. But peace doesn't join that party. It sits quietly at home, waiting for you to remember where you belong. You'll find it not in victory, not in validation, but in that quiet knowing. You don't need to fight every storm. You just need to stop chasing them. So breathe. Detach from the noise. Remember, not everything needs your reaction, and not everyone deserves your reply. Peace is not given. It's cultivated. And it begins the moment you stop running toward the things that steal it. When you stop chasing chaos, peace finds you. Always has, always will. Lesson 9. Arguments are traps for the undisciplined mind. There's a kind of energy the world feeds on. Argument. It lives in comment sections, group chats, and even quiet corners of the mind. It pulls you in with one promise: prove yourself. But the moment you enter that ring, you've already lost something sacred: your peace. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The Stoic knew words can't replace presence. Truth doesn't shout, it stands. The more disciplined you become, the less you feel the need to argue. Because real confidence doesn't chase validation, it radiates it. Think about the last time you felt drawn into an argument. It didn't end in peace. It ended in exhaustion, replaying words in your mind, defending your stance to yourself long after it was over. Arguments are thieves. They steal hours, energy, and calm. They turn your attention outward when it should remain inward. The Stoics understood that most arguments aren't about truth. They're about ego. The ego wants to win, not to understand. It wants applause, not wisdom. And every time you defend yourself from petty provocation, you strengthen the part of you that's least in control. That's why Epictetus taught, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. You can't grow while proving. You can't learn while defending. In today's world, argument has become performance. People don't seek understanding. They seek an audience. Platforms reward outrage. Algorithms feed conflict. And the more reactive you are, the more the world rewards your distraction. But your peace is too precious to trade for digital applause. So how do you rise above? By remembering that silence is not weakness, it's strategy. You don't need to correct every wrong opinion. You don't need to explain your truth to those committed to misunderstanding you. As Seneca said, the best answer to anger is silence. And silence doesn't mean surrender. It means choosing where your energy lives. Picture this: two fires burning side by side. One rages wildly, consuming everything around it. The other burns slow, controlled, powerful. The difference? Discipline. An argument is like the first fire, fast, emotional, destructive. But a calm mind is like the second, steady, enduring, impossible to extinguish. To master yourself is to master your reactions. That's the real battlefield. Every time you refuse to argue, you're not avoiding conflict. You're transcending it. You're saying, I will not let chaos enter me. That strength most people can't comprehend, because they confuse noise with power. It takes nothing to react, but it takes everything to remain calm, to breathe instead of bite back, to understand instead of attack. The disciplined mind knows that not every confrontation needs resolution. Some only need distance. You can't reason with someone whose goal isn't truth. You can't enlighten someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. Arguing with the blind only blinds you, and arguing with the loud only makes you louder, until you forget your own silence. The wise man sees this and steps back. He lets truth unfold in time, not in debate. This doesn't mean you suppress your voice. It means you elevate it. You learn to speak only when words have purpose, to correct only when correction can build, to walk away when pride would rather win than grow. Because wisdom doesn't demand to be heard, it's felt. Arguments drain the spirit. They turn clarity into confusion and understanding into pride. But the disciplined mind stands still in the storm. It doesn't need to prove its truth. It lives it. And that's what silences every critic without a word spoken. The next time someone tries to drag you into their chaos, remember, you owe no one your reaction. You owe yourself your peace. If someone misjudges you, let them. If they twist your words, release them. If they provoke you, smile inwardly and walk away. Because the moment you choose not to engage, you reclaim control. The Stoic doesn't fight every battle. He chooses which wars are worthy of his sword, and most are not. His silence is not submission. It's self-mastery. It's the quiet roar of a mind that refuses to be disturbed by the noise of the undisciplined. Seneca said, "He who is angry at the right person, for the right reason and in the right way, has taken a great step toward wisdom." That's the art, to know when to speak and when to stay silent. To fight only when your peace is at stake, never your pride. So when arguments arise, ask yourself, does this serve truth or does it feed my ego? Will this bring clarity or just more noise? And if the answer is noise, step back, not in fear, but in wisdom. Because peace will always be louder in silence than pride is in argument. The disciplined mind knows this. It doesn't need to win debates to win life. It only needs to guard its calm. For that is where power truly lives. Lesson 10. Peace is the final victory, There comes a time when you realize that not every battle needs to be won, because not every battle deserves to exist. Peace, not dominance, is the final measure of strength. We live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone wants to be heard, to prove, to be right. But the Stoic learns the art of standing still while others chase validation. He learns that silence is not emptiness, it is mastery. The one who can walk away with calm in his heart has already conquered what others still fight to understand. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It's one of the simplest truths, yet the hardest to live by. Because our minds crave closure. We want to win, to be understood, to have the last word. But when we do, we unknowingly surrender something far more valuable, our stillness. The Stoic knows that peace is not passive. It's an act of profound discipline, to remain unshaken when provoked, to stay kind when tested, to hold your ground when the world demands reaction. That's not weakness. That's the edge only the calm possess. Think about the storms that pass through your life. Arguments, betrayals, misunderstandings. Each one tries to pull you in, to make you dance with chaos. But what if you didn't? What if you simply stood in silence and let the storm exhaust itself? That's what peace feels like, not indifference, but deep inner control. You watch the waves crash, but you no longer drown in them. Peace is power contained. It's strength refined into restraint. Anyone can explode, few can endure. And endurance is the truest display of mastery. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Peace isn't found in the absence of chaos, but in your refusal to become it. When you no longer need to react, you've reached a kind of freedom that cannot be taken. The insults bounce off, the noise fades, and suddenly, you understand. Not every situation requires resolution. Sometimes, walking away is resolution. Sometimes, saying nothing is the most powerful sentence you can form. The world may not understand your calm. It will call it cold, distant, detached. But that's only because most have never known peace that didn't depend on approval. They mistake noise for passion and chaos for meaning. You'll learn otherwise. You'll learn that stillness is not detachment from life, but immersion in wisdom. To live in peace is to live on purpose. It's to know what deserves your energy and what doesn't. It's to no longer fight for attention, but for clarity. It's to replace reaction with reflection. And when that shift happens, you become immovable. Not because you resist the world, but because you've made peace your foundation. The Stoic doesn't seek a life free of problems. He seeks a mind free from their control. He knows that even amidst chaos, he decides what enters him. And in that decision lies freedom. Peace becomes not something he finds, but something he is. The wars outside will always continue. The noise, the judgment, the misunderstandings. But when you stand firm in your calm, you no longer contribute to them. You break the cycle. You stop adding fire to fire. And that is the highest victory one can earn, to bring no harm, even when harmed. Because peace is not surrender, it's transcendence. It is the moment when you realize that you don't need to fight the world to find your place in it. You only need to master yourself. And once you do, no one can pull you back into their chaos. Marcus Aurelius said it best. The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do. That's peace, the quiet dominance of the disciplined mind. The serenity of knowing that you can walk through storms and remain untouched, that you can face noise and remain unmoved. And when you finally reach that point, when calm no longer feels like effort but nature, you've won. You've won without words, without arguments, without needing anyone to see or agree, because peace is the final victory. It ends battles before they begin. It silences the world without a sound. In the end, peace is not something you stumble upon. It's something you build, moment by moment, choice by choice. It's forged in restraint, shaped by patience, and guarded by awareness. The Stoics knew that the world will always test your calm. It will provoke you, misunderstand you, drag you into arguments that have no destination. But wisdom whispers, you don't have to attend every war you're invited to. Each time you hold your tongue instead of your sword, you grow lighter. Each time you walk away from noise, you move closer to freedom. And in that quiet, you begin to see what truly matters. Not the approval of others, not the endless debates, but the stillness that comes from mastering your own reactions. Peace isn't weakness, it's control. It's the rare strength of a person who no longer needs to prove anything, who no longer fights for every truth, only the ones worth bleeding for. So let the world argue. Let them seek conflict. You, seek clarity, seek stillness, seek mastery. Because in a world that screams for attention, calm is the loudest sound. And silence is the final victory.